I'd like to call the meeting of April 11th, 2024 for the Regional Planning Governing Board.
Recording in progress.
May I have the roll call, please?
You certainly may. All right, Devin Reese, absent. Clara Andreola,
Present.
Donald Abbott. Here. Jenny Breckus. Here. Mike Clark, also absent. Naomi Dewar, also absent. Jean Herman. Here. Ed Lawson. Here. Kathleen Taylor.
Here.
Diane Vanderwell.
Here.
And non-voting member Beth Smith. Here. All right, I believe we just barely have a quorum.
But barely's good.
That's right.
Member Vanderwell, would you like to lead us in the salute of the flag?
If you'll please join me, I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're on item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion or is there a motion? I'll
Move to
entertain one.
approve.
Do I have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Can I
Thank
get
you.
clarification on the second for the agenda approval? Jean?
Commissioner Herman.
Perfect, thank you.
Item number 4 is approval of the minutes of the December 14th meeting. Is there any discussion or edits or changes? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve as presented. Member Herman made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Member Vanderbilt made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to go to item number 5, which is public comment. Is there a statement to read?
We have received none for this item.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move to item number 6, which is the consent agenda, which is to update the employment position descriptions that were provided. I believe that Dr. Smith is going to lead us in any discussion or presentation.
Record. It's up to you guys if you want to pull it off consent or push it through. You could have a motion or pull the item.
Move to approve it as presented.
We have motion. Do we have second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to item number 7A, we have a presentation, discussion, and possible adoption of the TMRPA budget for fiscal year 24-25. Dr. Smith?
Thank you very much. Jeremy Smith, the record. I'll be taking us through this presentation about our proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Let's hopefully my little clicker thing works good. So just a quick overview. We begin the budget process with this body during the October meeting so that we can vet any potential edits or changes that we need to consider well in advance of the local jurisdiction's budget setting process. And this past cycle, we came in October with an update and then also in December. And then following the December meeting of this body, I spoke with city and county managers to ensure that the needs that we identified were within scope for their budgets and established that early on. In general, the agency has seen budget fluctuations over the years. We've been building back really since the Great Recession and really with a focus on fiscal sustainability for the agency. And last year, we saw a significant increase in the budget, and that allowed us to hire Carla, who's here at the command center over there, our administrative assistant, and also to further our employee retention efforts. So we're going for a much more modest approach this year that we've, again, collaborated with the city and county managers and got their take on this for a 3.6% increase to the jurisdiction allocations. That translates to, in total to about $37,000 additional. And I'd actually gone in with asking for a 2.5%, and it was acting city manager Crawforth who suggested that we probably ought to try to tie the increase to the West Region CPI. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's a valid point because that is the thing that we need to keep up with, which is that inflation, and that's, as I understand, how the city of Sparks does it. So we thought it was a great idea, and everyone agreed. And so this is the increase that we're looking at, $14,781 for the city of Reno and $11,078 for city of Sparks and Washoe County. In terms of how we look this year, it looks like we are going to have our expenditures at around 95% of what we had forecasted and our revenues at just around 100%. This is our estimate to complete. And what that actually ends up doing is continues to build our fund balance with that little amount of savings by about $33,400. So that's looking really good. You'll see in a second here, my goal is to try to utilize this fund balance to minimize the need to, the amount we need to increase annually on the jurisdictional allocations and kind of use that fund balance to manage that and eat into that a little bit. In terms of what we're trying to do in the next fiscal year, that's that 3.6% increase. We're going to continue our shared work program with the RTC, continue our shared work program with the Western Regional Water Commission. And we also have a small contract with Nevada Land Trust. We're helping One Truckee River with some online mapping stuff, and other things come around as they're identified, and we'll, of course, keep you posted on that. Further, we're going to complete the regional plan update. Still shooting for October. You're going to hear an update about where we are with that coming your way soon. And that means we're going to be using any remaining consultant dollars we had banked since the update in 2019, getting that taken care of. We are doing this 8% increase for staff is the target. That's a 5% merit and a 3% COLA. And that really does address what I've talked about in the past in terms of getting those positions to parity. And then finally, we know that there has been inflation in the cost of everything, our bookkeeping, auditing services, not our legal counsel, thank you very much, stayed static. And then we're assuming a PERS rate of 33.5. That could change based on the legislature. So when you see my 5-year forecast, I've kind of thought about, hey, that can change, so we look at that. But for now, it's still at 33.5.
Jeremy, real
Yeah.
quick, on your 8% for the employees, is that all at once? Or are we going to do 5% and then put 3% on top of 5%?
It would be all at once, so it wouldn't be, on top of it. Yeah, you bet. So this would be the proposed budget. There are those new allocations in the top line, looking at total revenue of about $1.2 million, and total expenditures also very close at about $1.2 million. So matching pretty good. But we do, if we were to hit the expenditures at 100%, revenue at 100%, we will dig into that fund balance by about $36,000. So combined with what we saved last year and what we're asking for this year, we're going to be able to handle it, no problem. It's still a really healthy fund balance that you'll see I'm trying to utilize as we move forward. So always a good idea to be thinking ahead of what we're facing. And again, we're really focused on organizational and financial stability, sustainability. And so some assumptions about a 5-year, I wouldn't call this a worst-case scenario, but I would call it kind of an aggressive scenario where didn't contemplate any savings. We spent every dollar that we had to spend, and we just got what we were going to get. And here's some of the assumptions: that health insurance and other services might go up. We did a 2% annual on that. That over the next 5 years, PERS will increase from 33.5 up to something like 37, 38. 3% increase for the director's salary as a target. 5% annual merit increase for staff. That's with up to 5% merit within the range. Annual increase to the jurisdiction allocations. I chose 3%, but looking at that West Region CPI, it's probably going to vary somewhere between 2 to 4%, something like that. I hope it doesn't go much higher than that. Continue our shared services with WRWC and RTC, and assumes that we, again, receive all of the revenue and then we spend everything we say we're going to do. So no savings. And what it's really doing is maximizing our existing fund balance, which has been born of savings during COVID and kind of little savings year after that, and don't want to get below about 10%. And so when you add it all up, this is pretty tough to read, probably at this screen size, but if you go to the very bottom, I think what you hopefully can see is that very last row on the bottom, our fund balance is currently sitting at around 23%, and over time, combine allocation increases that are small, plus carving into that fund balance a little bit, over 5 years, we'd still be around 11% under this scenario. So of course, this is probably not what is going to happen exactly, but this gives us some reassurance that we have some good financial sustainability for the agency coming forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about any of this. And there is a proposed motion on the screen above you.
Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make the motion. I move to adopt the proposed TMRPA budget for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 as presented in attachment 1 of the staff report.
Would be good. That's right. We do.
So we have a motion and a second. I'm pausing because we needed to call for public comment. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask legal counsel, can I have the motion and the second, and then
Further discussion.
exercise? Or do you
Call it
want us
further
just,
discussion.
yeah,
I think you go ahead and call for further discussion and public comment
thank you.
on this
I
item.
was going to do that, but I wanted to make sure.
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'm going to call for discussion
Any public?
and now include public comment, please.
We've received none for this item.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well,
Thank you.
ready?
Yeah, ready. Sure.
Sorry about that. The next item is 7B, which is a presentation and possible discussion regarding an interlocal agreement for TMRPA to calculate the annual population estimate for Washoe County and deliver to the Nevada State Demographer. And I believe we have Dr. Smith doing this presentation.
Yes, thank you again. It'll be Jeremy Smith for the record to take us through this pretty quick presentation. Let's see if it'll go. Maybe it's not.
Clicker.
There we go. Thank you, Damien. Okay, so every year, the counties in Nevada need to provide to the state demographer a local estimate of population based on dwelling units. And this is the work that we're contemplating taking over for Washoe County. It ends up being one of the inputs that the state demographer uses to create the governor's certified estimate of population that is then used for tax distribution purposes and other purposes. This has historically been performed by Washoe County staff. We were approached 2 years ago to take this over. There has never been any accusation of any kind of bias, but there was, sort of the specter of the idea that since there is a tax distribution component to this, that it might sit better with a neutral party that's not involved in that. And so that was identified. And plus, it dovetails really well with the work that we do in terms of tracking and monitoring and forecasting residential growth. So we thought, heck yeah, this is a great idea, and it'll just put us more into the official source for this kind of data that we use all the time. So, in fact, Damien, mostly, Team RP staff / Damien, has actually performed the work over the past 2 years under the guidance of staff at Washoe County that previously had done this work. Officially, they're still submitting to the demographer because that's how it works out right now. But we're in the process of a legal review of a draft interlocal agreement between regional planning and the 3 jurisdictions for everyone to hopefully agree that we would take over this process going forward officially. And that's happening right now. I think next week we have a meeting scheduled to finalize that draft. And we wanted to get well in advance of agendizing it at the locals because we're shooting to bring it to City Council, Sparks, Reno, and then the Washoe County Commission in May. I don't have those exact dates yet, but I should have them next week. So it'll be coming in May. And one of the ideas here is that we wanted to introduce this item to you today so that when it comes to your local body, you'll be, you can hopefully help shepherd it through if it makes sense. Here we go, keep going. So planned for then final approval to bring it back here to our June meeting to get the final signatures on there. And then we would be taking over. And that really works well with the schedule because it actually is a fiscal year reporting. So we end up getting a cut from the Washoe County assessor at the end of really 2 weeks after July 1. And that is inclusive of all the new growth that has happened in terms of dwelling units back to the previous July 1. We go through the process. I'll show you a little bit about the methodology in a sec here, but make sure everyone is on board, review with staff at the local jurisdictions, and then have to provide that estimate to the demographer no later than September 30th is that target date. And it really just allows time for everyone to see how everything's working out and see if they agree or if we need to do any edits. And so it's super quick methodology for how this gets done, that we get that cut from the Washoe County Assessor's Office, which I will also say that doing this process has bolstered our connection to the Washington County Assessor's Office is really helpful as well. And in fact, we get the annual cut to really facilitate the process, but Doug over there at the Assessor's Office has created a script that gives us a monthly output of dwelling units that are being built and realized. So we're really a lot deeper into the process now, which is great. So we get that cut about 2 weeks after July 1. We make sure it's matched spatially to the parcels by APN. We utilize a vacancy rate and person per household dwelling, or person per household factor rather, from the United States Census to calculate a population from our empirical tracking of dwelling units. Then once we get that draft population for households, we include the tribes and group quarters populations, aggregate that up at a jurisdiction level, and then disseminate to the local planning staff for review. And then if everything's good, submit to the demographer. And then he puts together his certified estimate. And you can just kind of see the math over on the right there. We've got an image, an existing set of apartments on the bottom of it. There's 128 dwelling units there. Looking the north of the picture, 257 dwelling units in something that you can see was in construction when the image was taken, but actually got completed. And so now we're adding new units to the overall count. And to calculate that household population, again, it's the occupied dwelling units. So apply a vacancy rate. And then a person per household multiplier equals that estimated household population for this particular slide view. That 257 plus 128 is 395 times 2.5, which is the person per household multiplier, and you get to 987 estimated household population. So with that, that's the information I wanted to present today. Now you're ready in May when this comes before you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And there's a proposed motion up top there.
Any discussion? Public comment?
We've received none for this item.
Entertain a motion?
I have a question first.
Okay.
Sure.
How much are they paying you?
Thank you.
That's what we all want to know.
Yes,
How much
it
is
is.
Washoe County
Yep.
paying?
Nothing has been discussed from a payment perspective at this time, but they are supporting our.
It's exactly the same work that you do for RTC and in the water board.
I think we can see if that's a possibility.
I mean, I think
I concur.
they're saving the money on the full-time employees. We're adding the extra work. We should be compensated.
Okay, absolutely. We'll explore that, figure out some estimates of time, and come back with that understanding in June.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the report with the direction to look into compensation for doing this work for Washoe County.
And I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Member Lawson and a second by Member Vanderwell. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we are now on to item 7C, which is the presentation and possible discussion regarding a progress report on the 2024 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update. And I believe we have presenters. Okay, so Mr. Kusha, and then followed by Mr. Tolley.
For the record, Nate Kuja, DMRPA, and also will be followed by your own director again. All right, so we're here to give an update on where we're at with the 2024 Regional Plan update process. So just to kick us off, last time, as many of you are aware, hopefully all of you at this point, we did kind of a major overhaul to the regional plan in our 2019 update. So we really refined our approach to natural resource policies. We came up with the regional land designations, or tiers as you know them, and I had many other considerations and discussions along with that update. It took a long time, a lot of work. We got there. This time, with our 2024 update, rather, we have a much more targeted, specific policy-oriented research approach. So it's a much more minor update with some very targeted policy additions and refinements. And those are mostly going to be born out of our two efforts that came out of the last update, which is our natural resources plan and our public infrastructure plan, which we'll go through where we're at with both of those now. So with our natural resources plan, just to kind of reground you in what is this, why are we doing it, right? So NRS, we're really trying to better meet our NRS requirements. So the Nevada Revised Statutes requires that the regional plan include goals, policies, maps, and other documents related to conservation, air, land, water, natural resources, a host of other things. And so we're really trying to better meet those requirements. And we're really trying to bring together as much data and information as we can in a centralized location for not only our benefit, but our partners as well as the general public. And then finally, last goal of the Natural Resources Plan is to identify a subset of that data and information that will really be the backbone to those policy improvements in the 2024 Regional Plan update. So, as you hopefully all know as well, we launched our data portal. This is a great effort. It's going to be an invaluable tool for us, our partners, and the public alike again. And in addition to being the backbone for the data portal, all the data gathered that really fed into this is being analyzed to inform our policy discussions on natural resource topics and hopefully for inclusion or possible policy refinements in the regional plan. And then additionally, the portal has already served really useful in the preservation of the Truckee River Information Gateway data. So we were approached by the Western Regional Water Commission to help preserve the data from that effort, the Truckee River Information Gateway, which was done a number of years ago. And through a collaboration with our partners at the Stormwater Committee, we were able to migrate all of that data from that old website that's going to be decommissioned and move that into our natural resources data portal. So all of that information is still available and searchable on our portal now. It took a while, but actually Carla, our admin person over there, got it all up in there for us. So the portal will also serve to be a clearinghouse for a host of natural resource related data across the region. So moving into the document itself. So we have been writing this thing for quite a while now. Almost all of the topic narratives are drafted and have been released for review. And that's really the meat of kind of the natural resources plan, which I'll get into a little bit of the structure and what that looks like in the next slide. But in addition to that, we've largely drafted the introduction chapter and the conclusion chapter. We've come up with the document layout, and we have much of the graphic design also completed as well, as you can see with our lovely cover there. So what is this going to look like? So here's kind of a mock of what the table of contents is going to look like. We have our introduction chapter. It's all the standard stuff. Who are we? What is this natural resource plan that we're doing? Why are we doing it? Etc. And then we have our chapters 2 through 7, which are our categories with the inclusive topics underneath. That's where all of the real nitty-gritty information is going to be, kind of about opportunities and challenges, which in either of those, within each of those topics that we defined. And those really came through many meetings that we've had through our committee members that we created for the NR plan process. And also this will be a living document. So as we identify more topics that maybe we need to address in our region, we can add those right in, do the research, find the data and information, and slide it in as an update. Then we have our conclusion, obviously, and finally our appendices, which right now, the one we have so far is the natural resource case studies and best practices memorandum, which our consultant at Stantec completed for us last year. So moving on from that, that's our document side of things, and that is hopefully going to help us get to, or has already really, get into these natural resource policy implications to be added into the regional plan. So we've identified 4 policy additions from this effort that we hope to get into the regional plan in the update in October. And you can see them up here, and we'll walk through them each a little bit, but it's source water protection, regional trails, tribal coordination, and natural resource considerations areas, which if you don't know what that is, we'll get into it in a minute. So first off, our source water protection and regional trails policies. So there's 2 efforts that coincide with this, which was the source water protection plan, which we worked with RCI and help me out, the organizations that we're working with.
NDP.
Thank you, and others. And that is a plan that it was going on for a number of years. We helped get it through, and we helped create maps and host online. All of that, we did a lot of work similarly with the regional trails group. and with their Truckee Meadows Regional Trail Plan, and they're working on a follow-up document to that as well. So we've been involved with these for a number of years, and so we kind of have a backbone for both of these policies, which are really just going to be to ask the jurisdictions and the affected entities in their plans to recognize the development plan, whether it's the Source Water Protection Plan or the Regional Trails Plan, and really to request comment from the appropriate entities during the development review process. So if a project comes in and say it's within a certain distance, this is all sort of being fine-tuned, but a certain distance of a proposed trail, then we will route that to the regional trail group, who will say who they need to talk to and what considerations need to be taken into account for anything like that. Similarly with source water protection, which we'll see maps coming up. Moving on from that, our third policy we've identified is tribal coordination. So we've really identified a need to improve our coordination with tribal governments at a regional level and to consider the tribal perspective in the development review process. So this is things like acknowledging the connection to the earth and the Native American perspectives on the future. We're really looking to get comments from the tribes when a proposed development, something that we see is affecting them in a way, right? And the parameters for what that means, we're in discussions with the tribes currently on what that is, and we're working with them on the language of this policy. But it could be things such as it's within a buffer of tribal lands, whether it's 10 miles, whatever that distance is, hasn't been finalized yet, but we're working on that. Similarly, maybe a project comes through that is in a possible area of sort of dense cultural landscape. So maybe there's petroglyphs in the area, things like that that have been identified. If we can find where those areas are and we have a map access to that, we can say, hey, you're near this sort of thing. We want you to go get comment and talk to the tribes about what sort of precautions need to be taken, et cetera. Additionally, so we are working on putting up a web page that all of our initial review memos will go onto so that anybody has access to those after we write an initial review memo, which is, of course, the memo that we write when a project is kind of first conceived of before it goes through the jurisdictional review, but it will come to regional. We comment on it so the jurisdictions can see what regional's take is on that project before it actually comes to regional planning, because that's kind of at the end of the process. We want to get our word in there at the beginning. So we're yet again working on the parameters for when, but we are also thinking if we can get those IRMs up, then everybody has access to those, and then we can flag ones that specifically interact with these tribal areas, and we can route those directly to the tribes themselves and be like, hey, we've noticed this is in a culturally sensitive area, et cetera, and we want you to comment on it and give your take. So that's where we are with that policy. Still in draft form, but we were working towards getting these languages sort of to a more final state, which yet again I'll discuss coming up. Our last one is kind of the big one. This is the Natural Resource Considerations Areas, or NRCA. And this is really a companion to the DCA, which is our Hardline Development Constraints Areas. And so this NRCA area map, along with the DCA map, will really help us to satisfy the NRS requirements that says that we have to have a map that shows where it's best suited for development. So we've kind of done the flip side with that, saying here's the areas that aren't with these two maps together, which de facto then shows which areas are. So we are working on this policy, and we'll go through some examples soon, but this is going to be utilizing a spatial check of some specific data layers that we've targeted for every case that comes to regional planning, and we'll include a report of those interactions during that initial review memo submission, and also we'll make this tool available for use by local planners to utilize in their casework as well. So what does that mean? What does that look like? So these are the specific layers that we have targeted thus far to be included in this NRCA layer. So it's, things like slopes of 15 to 30%, wildfire risk and hazard, wildlife areas, endangered threatened species. You can see the list there. So these are the ones we've targeted, and we're going to be making sure that all of this data and these layers are coming from a reliable source, something that's regularly updated, things that are vetted. They're not just data we're coming up with. So something that everybody can agree on is solid data. So what we will do is this. So when we receive a case, or a jurisdiction rather receives a case, and we're going to produce our initial review memo, we'll run the parcel, put it in the map that has all these layers. So this map is only utilizing 3 of those layers. As you saw, there'll be roughly about 10 when this is all finished and finalized. But right now we did 3 just to kind of show you what it looks like. And we have our critical source water protection areas, that's those purple areas. Endangered and threatened species are the green crosshatch, as well as the fire history. So this is kind of getting at that wildfire risk area. And we don't know if we'll be using this exact layer, but something similar. We have the wildfire risk map that the jurisdictions use. It'll probably be something like that. So what you can see here is on example 1 on the left, we see interactions with the green and the brown, which is our fire history and our endangered and threatened species, where that example 2 on the right does not have any endangered species or threatened species, but does have our critical source water protection areas on a large portion of it, as well as some fire history. So this will be the kind of visual representation. So what will it look like when we produce an initial review memo is we will run that parcel number through a tool, and it'll give us an output of all the interactions of these layers. So you can see here on example 1, we have that critical source water protection area as a feature class there. Percent cover is 0%. So that's no interaction. It's not on the site, right? But that second one is from the City of Reno, Nevada fire history layer. And we can see that percent covers 13, almost 14%. So this is showing that, and there's acres, the fire overall was 105 acres. Natural causes happened in 2006. So 13% of that subject site is covered by where there was a previous fire. Similarly with the endangered species, about 17% of that has an endangered species, and it looks like it's the Carson wandering skipper, and that's the endangered species. So example 2, we do have critical source water protection area, and that's on about 43% of the site. We have fire history as well, but no endangered or threatened species. So this is something that just provides additional information for us, for the jurisdictions, and really help us to get a little more detailed on the natural resources that we're dealing with on any given parcel. So this will be basically an addendum or an attachment to all of our initial review memos, and there'll be a readout like this that we can say you interact with 5 of our 10 layers, and here's what that means, what is that interaction, and we're hoping, we don't have it on this one, but to have a contact for each of these 2 on the readout. So it's like, okay, you interact with a critical source water protection area, you see it's on 43% on the site, you need to contact, Great Basin Water Company or TUMWA, whoever it is. So that's kind of the thought there. Hopefully that made sense. Getting head nods. Lovely.
Thank you.
So that is all of our policies that we imagine from the Natural Resource Plan effort being included into the regional plan. And yet again, these are all sort of draft policies for now. We're almost done with our information document, the Natural Resources Plan itself. The policies are still in the works and will be essentially until adoption in October of our new regional plan. So what have we done along the way for all of this? We've been engaging with numerous groups. We have our committees that we've created for the Natural Resource Plan. We've had about 10 meetings with each of the different committees. Plus we have ongoing coordination just through email. We have, like I said, many of our drafts of these up on a site where those committee members are going in there and reviewing and editing, giving us comments and feedback. We have talked specifically about the Natural Resources Plan at about 5 of our regional plan update working group meetings. We've done 10 events for community engagement, and then also we've had a number of independent engagement opportunities. We started this process back right after COVID hit, and so we weren't able to do sort of in-person engagement events, but we created our self-guided field trips and our Love Where You Live informational series online, things like that, so it can keep people engaged without meeting in person. We've talked at about 15 different Regional Planning Commission and Regional Planning Governing Board meetings about the NR plan, including 2 specific policy-related workshops with the RPC. And we've had 3 specific meetings with the tribal governments on tribal coordination and their thoughts on the tribal sort of topics in the plan, as well as the tribal coordination policies, which we're still in communication with them and working on as well. So next steps, we're hoping to have a full draft of this document out in about 2 weeks on April 23rd, and that'll be for public review. So we'll put that up online. The public can go look at it. Any of you guys can check it out, give us your feedback and comments. we're hoping to have draft regional plan policy language presented to the regional plan update working group meeting in May, on May 16th. And then that additionally will be put up for public review as well. And you guys can also give us your comments. And I'm sure we'll be talking specifically about that policy language with you guys as well. And we're really hoping to get this plan done and accepted by you guys at your June meeting of this year. So the next time we see you guys, hopefully we're bringing this for adoption. That's the goal. With that, I'm going to turn it to Chris to talk about the public infrastructure plan.
1 second.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. Is this going to be one map, or are you going to create a map for when somebody wants to develop something?
So we will have an online map viewer that will contain all of those natural resource consideration area layers on there. So that'll be an online tool, but then any case that comes to regional will run through the tool itself and give that readout on, but that won't be done for every jurisdictional case unless the local planners choose to do it. It'll be available at any time for them to as well.
Okay, and then with this, did you get opposing views? Or
In
just-
regard-
Well, for the wandering skipper, is an endangered species, but did we have an opposing view that said maybe that's not the case, or maybe he's wandered out of that area?
So we have not. And again, this kind of examples that we gave are very sort of draft kind of proof of concept right now. That endangered species layer that we use on that map specifically is actually from the Forest Service. We're working on verifying that with NDOW because they maintain the official layers, is our understanding. So we're trying to get that data solidified. But these come back to kind of the validity of the data. We're using the most reliable data that we can find for any of these layers. And we did talk about this with our working group, and we'll make sure that that's all vetted before we put that into policy.
Yeah, so my point being is that I want to be as fair as possible down the middle, and, I know if I'm in favor of something, I'm going to say I want all the land to be under the wandering skipper's purview.
Sure. Yeah. And yet again, the information we're providing here is not necessarily saying you can't build here because something is on site, anything like that. This is just informative. So if the layer identifies that maybe there is an endangered species on that, we'll report that out, give the contact and say, talk to them. They may go talk to NDOW, whoever the official source is, and say, oh yeah, that's actually accurate anymore, and you maybe find theirs, stuff like that. So it's not hard line like you fall within this, no development sort of thing.
Yeah, that's my concern, so
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, if I may, quickly, just to clarify, I believe what Mr. Kusha meant when he said it would come back to this body in June for adoption is essentially a final look for approval, because there is a process before any adoption of the 5-year updates, which consists of 3 public hearings before the Regional Planning Commission, before it can come to this body with a recommendation from the Planning Commission for adoption. So I believe that's what you meant.
So that is for the regional plan itself, specifically for the natural resources plan. It's not going to be part of the regional plan itself. It's a separate informational document. So we're hoping to bring it just to this body for acceptance, and we're not hoping to adopt it so that we don't have to do a regional plan update anytime the document needs to be amended or we add something to it.
We'll be talking.
That's what I saw. Thank you.
Good afternoon, governing board members. Chris Tolley, Team RPA. I will take us through the public infrastructure plan portion of the 2024 regional plan update. And just as similar to, as Nate laid out the presentation, we'll be doing a little bit of a reminder about the components. But this was, the public infrastructure plan was envisioned through the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan as a way for the region to continue to up our game regarding public infrastructure. So that's why the policy was put in there to basically add this effort to the TMRPA's work plan to do this as part of the 2024 regional plan update. And as you've seen multiple times, the goals pared back a little bit for this one. But goal 1 was to create the document, the public infrastructure plan. Goal 2 was to coalesce and combine the available data on existing and planned infrastructure and service provision. Goal 3 was to design and implement policy and process improvements to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And then we'll go, one more. A little bit also just re-grounding ourselves in policy PF1 and the statutes and what they require that we address, and that is the domains, we call them the 5, which is water, wastewater, stormwater, flood control, transportation, and then finally schools. And we'll go over each of the goals and provide a little bit more detail in terms of where we're at in each of these. And so in regard to goal 1, again, drafting the actual document, we do anticipate a publicly reviewable draft will be available in the mid-June timeframe. As we've presented multiple times, the document will be composed of basically chapters addressing each of the domains. So water will have a chapter, wastewater will have a chapter, and so on, as well as short and long-term policy implications, things that we plan to tackle, and this would be, I guess, adding them to the TMRPA work plan moving forward. And then currently we have the outline of the overall document created and are drafting the individual components, the chapters. And then before that mid-June publicly reviewable timeframe release of the document, we do envision giving staff at the jurisdictions and entities about 2 weeks to take a look at the document and tell us if we've missed some information or point us in the direction of other documents to reference to bring into the public infrastructure plan. And then goal 2, and we've been working in goal 2. This is collecting the data and turning it into information. We've been working really in this paradigm for the public infrastructure plan since 2021 and a little bit before that in terms of working with the jurisdictions and the entities to let them know what we would be asking for in the future before we actually ask for it, so they had essentially a heads up. And this is broken into several components, so we are looking for, on an annual basis, to get an updated set of public infrastructure data, and that is the spatial information showing the roads and pipes. And that we've targeted basically the April to May timeframe to get a new cut of that. And each year, we would get a new cut of that, and that would be essentially part of the history. So we could look back in time to see how the infrastructure has changed, and how that would show up would be like on the map shown on the right-hand side, showing the infrastructure proximity. So that map is in the 2019 Truckee Mills Regional Plan currently, but that data is from that time frame or before. So we would be looking to update or have the data to be able to update this map and others. And then we're also collecting the CIPs, the capital improvement plans, and the unique retrospective document spreadsheet that we asked for from the jurisdictions, which tries to get a little bit more information that we need really for the public infrastructure plan related to growth and community investment, and we'll look at those types as well in a few slides. And that information is currently being submitted to us on an annual basis, and we'll talk about that as well. And then the CIP spending summaries. So we are creating these, and these will be, at this point, we're creating what are templates that will be part of the public infrastructure plan. And that is, again, the CIP spending summary, and then a regional look at CIP spending. And that includes a retrospective spreadsheet that we get the unique document from the jurisdictions, and looking also at the future CIP spending. And we're creating those with our consultant that we hired for this process, Hansford Economic Consulting. And then the information that we talked about on the previous slide that we're asking for, when we were envisioning how this was going to play out for the public infrastructure plan in terms of asking for all the data, it made complete sense to use the existing ask, the annual report ask process that we send out on an annual basis. So TMRPA staff, usually in the month of December, creates the ask or updates it. It might just be a date. Hopefully in the future, we'll just be updating dates and keep it fairly consistent. But that was the existing process that the jurisdictions and the entities would submit to us on an annual basis, a narrative report. And that report is due on April 1st. So utilizing this ask to also request the CIP retrospective and the future fiscal year CIP. So as we're asking for those two components on an annual basis, we will have at our fingertips, essentially, it's about 6 or 7 years in total coverage, looking back at what was actually built, the current fiscal year CIP, and then approximately the next 5, and creating a summary about that information. for the public infrastructure plan. And then the bottom, so that blue top component is the narrative portion, the orange component is talking about the CIP specific information, and then the green is the data that we already talked about, but asking for fresh cuts of data on an annual basis, and some of which are sent to us essentially in a folder, and some of which we can utilize the GIS URL REST service. I believe I said that correctly, but anyways, where we can basically download the information from the jurisdictions and entities that utilize that service. And this turns into the data that we've collected turns into the actual information, and that's what's shown up here on this screen. So this data that we're collecting regarding the CIPs will allow us to display, and this is not, I guess, one of the unique features of this is we're not just looking at a jurisdiction or an entity. We're looking across the board at all jurisdictions and entities so that we can display, as is shown up here, a count of projects using unique geography. So the map on the left shows the TUMA fee areas and a count of growth-related projects in those areas. And the map on the right shows the regional land designation tiers, and we can sum up the number of, just basically the number of projects that are located in those. This isn't getting into the actual funding, this is just straight up count. But we can show the information in this manner, and then we are also representing, as we've learned through the process, that in order to show the complete picture of public infrastructure, we need to show both growth and community investment, so that we can represent both, really the complete picture, almost the complete picture. So growth being capacity projects and community investment being maintenance and rehab projects. And the maps shown up here are shown, I think I might have mentioned it, but just showing growth. But we have since obtained the data showing the complete picture from TUMA that we'll be updating and incorporating into the public infrastructure plan document. And then the information that's submitted also when we're looking at the CIP retrospective and then also the CIPs, we'll be able to summarize spending across the region. So this is showing the actual information that was submitted to us for calendar year 2022. And we have since shifted from calendar year in conversations with the jurisdictions and entities to the fiscal year. But because our annual report was based on the calendar year, we thought it made sense to ask for that initially, but it makes complete sense to switch to fiscal year. So we've modified that in order to reduce our burden on the jurisdictions and not have them create too much of a unique set of data for us. But you can see the total is in the neighborhood of 350 million for the different domains. We've got, again, water, wastewater, stormwater, flood, transportation, and schools. Transportation, in terms of the information that was submitted to us, and this is an approximation, transportation is the top, with the schools being the 107 million, so right under that. And then we not only have the ability to throw up a simple chart showing the breakdowns just of the domains, but we can delve in to the actual domains. So the picture on the right, or the map on the right, is showing the school district information, and this doesn't quite match up with the calendar year representation there. The map is showing essentially this year moving forward, this fiscal year moving forward. But it's still representative of what we can show in the public infrastructure plan to show where investments are occurring, as long as we have spatial data to back that up. So where the investments are occurring in each domain. And then taking that a step further along again, this is in the water domain, but looking at growth versus community investment. Again, this is the information that was submitted to us for calendar year 2022. So growth for water, and this is only TUMA. No, I think it's the entire picture, but so what they submitted to us for 2022 shows 41 million or 41.5 million approximately for growth, and then 21 million in the community investment. And this is an approximation, and we used our knowledge to determine whether something was growth versus community investment, but the line between those might be a little bit more blurry in terms of trying to figure out the actual cut. And I think it's important to note that through our process, we have asked for an additional field in the data that asks the jurisdictions and entities with the intimate knowledge of this to actually tell us if something is related to growth and community investment. So moving forward, we will have an accurate breakdown of what this information looks like. And then the chart on the right shows spending by entity, and we have the SVGID and TUMA. TUMA, I was going to try to calculate the person share here, but I didn't quite have time. But, TUMA outspends SVGID significantly, but when you consider the number of people in each geography, that'd be an interesting tidbit of information to have. But this is the information we can break down from the data that we receive. And then moving on to goal number 3. So this is designing and implementing improvements to the 2018 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. This is really deploying the information, as we've said in the past, deploying the information or the data that we received, turned into information and put that into what we do. Not only TMRPA, but also for our partners, the jurisdictions and the entities and members of the public. So the changes we are envisioning are updating policy PF3 to require the ongoing implementation of the public infrastructure plan. And that is an annual refresh of the data we just looked at on the slide. So those are current within the year, within the time frame that the information is submitted to us. And then periodic updates as necessary to the actual PIP document. And then short and long-term policy implications. TMRPA work plan items for the PIP, as I briefly discussed, and then utilization of the data that we receive for policy PF1. And policy PF1 is the policy that sets the standards for each of the domains as we go through and review conformance reviews as well as projects of regional significance. And then the data will be available to inform our existing processes such as spatial modeling, consensus forecast, and we are not intending to replace any of the great work being done throughout the region. This is a value add from the regional perspective. And a reminder who we're working with. This is the primary people that we're working with, but I think you could add a few to this list as well. We won't go over the names, but they're there. And then similar to the NR plan, our engagement stats, we do, going back to 2021, when we started meeting with the jurisdictions and entities, we've amassed in the neighborhood of 40, mid-40s meetings. And that, anytime we're going to do something, introduce a concept or something other, we're meeting with all these groups. So that's why the numbers seem pretty high, individually and then collectively. So we got 42 in the mid-40s for the total meetings for us in regards to the PIP. And then the Regional Plan Update Working Group, approximately 4, specifically regarding the PIP. Community engagement in the neighborhood of 8. That includes presentations to professional groups, to the Nevada APA, our community conversation regarding the PIP, and then the number of RPC and RPGB meetings in the neighborhood of 6. And then PIP moving forward, so continued work with our consultant, HEC, to create the CIP spending summaries, regional look at each domain and collective spending, and then retrospective and the future. Retrospective, I guess, current, and then future. And then a complete draft available in mid-June timeframe, and then looking for acceptance of the PIP in the July timeframe for the RPC, and then the August timeframe for the RPGB. And I'll turn it over to...
Thank you, Chris. Jeremy Smith, the record. I'm going to take us through a few slides. You can see the colors have changed now to a green slide hue. Just wanted to give some perspective from our consultant, Catherine Hansford at Hansford Economic Consulting. She's been helping us to evaluate this kind of work and how it's done elsewhere. And thank you, Damien. Well, what we found collectively is that we're kind of pioneering that. Obviously, the individual entities and organizations and jurisdictions here in the region are doing an excellent job of taking care of their needs. For example, TUMA, a single-purpose entity with potable water delivery, doing a great job. But what we're trying to do is bring it all together into a high-level synthesis that helps lead a regional discussion about infrastructure provisioning, what we've done and what we plan to do, and how that comports with our understanding of future growth. So this is kind of pioneering work to some degree. We didn't find a lot of examples, but there is this American Planning Association quote, which talks about the importance of local and regional planning for guiding these kinds of investments. We did find 3 examples that Catherine went and took a look at. The first one I want to talk about is the One San Francisco, or One SF. and really to plan and finance projects that strengthen the integrity and resilience of San Francisco's infrastructure, created through the Office of Resilience and Capital Planning for the City and County of San Francisco, and really looking to coordinate interagency capital initiatives, strategic guidance, right, to decision makers such as yourselves in that region. It's a 10-year look. As you heard from Chris, ours is a 1-year retrospective current year and then 5-year CIP look is kind of what we're targeting for our data. They're looking at 10. What makes it good? Clear summaries of capital spending needs. They have good maps. Very little narrative, but visually easily digestible. And that's a very similar approach to what we've kind of contemplated all along. So that's one example of where a region is putting it all together. Slightly different domains. You know, ours are transportation, schools, potable water, wastewater, and stormwater and flood. You'll see public safety pop into some of these, and other public buildings is one of them. So that's the 1SF example. Pretty cool, and you can go online and check that out. I can be happy to share some links. Another is the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, DC. Again, bringing leaders together, obviously a multivariate sort of jurisdiction outlay over there in DC. And so, again, looking to look for an infrastructure report, an online resource to look for federal funding. How can we guide strategic investment, or how can they guide it? Their domains are transportation, water, they've got energy, public buildings, and public safety. So some crossover there. You know, they're looking at 15 years. What makes it good? Again, for Catherine, graphics depicting the statistics and making an easy story, right? To be able to tell what is the importance of this and really kind of identify the needs for the region. The next one comes all the way from across the globe in Australia, Queensland, Australia. So the purpose here, prioritize regional infrastructure within the Queensland state. Apparently there's about 7 regions in Queensland, and the requirement is these 7 regions each put together an infrastructure synthesis, and then they bring it all together for the state of Queensland. You can see similar domains, transportation, education. They've included health, energy, arts, public safety, and water. So we have at least 3 of those, 3 or 4 of those. And again, the domains that we've chosen for our public infrastructure plan are a result of the things that are in state law that the NRS requires us to bring into the regional planning paradigm. 20-year horizon in Queensland. Again, clear description of objectives, kind of more of a traditional report is my understanding, but it's a way for folks to get together and decision makers to get together and think about how different parts of the region and different entities within the region are strategizing for capital improvements to both keep things maintained at the quality level that they're at and also accommodate the future growth that we understand is coming. So some key findings. We can probably use this PIP project to convey facts and messages about the importance of investment in public infrastructure. Keep information in the PIP pretty high level, which has always been our goal. You know, we want to be at the regional level that we're at. We're not trying to replace anyone's job and the work that gets done out there, but as Chris mentioned, we want it to be a value add. Focus on the importance of this information to foster regional dialogue, right? To maintain our infrastructure and to all be collectively ready. We do plan to have a dashboard on our website that will show the kinds of maps and graphs that are more complete based on the acceptance of the information from this year, this ask that it's coming in right now, and we're putting it together. So that'll be part of our annual report, we anticipate, as a highlights little zone, but then also very detailed at a public infrastructure plan page you could go to and get into the nitty-gritty. And just really enhances our ability to collaborate as a region and to understand collectively what we're all planning to do. So we thought that was pretty cool that Catherine Hansford had found these examples, but it was pretty difficult to find these examples. So I think we're doing some pretty good work here. And maybe one day people will say, Truckee Meadows, that's where you go to find out about that. Okay, so just to kind of address between here and then, right? We're still shooting for the October 10th meeting of this body to bring forward the regional plan update, the 5-year update. And as we know, it's fairly targeted. We've been considering these 2 reference plans as supporting documents, but any policy or any map that is going to be included in the regional plan would be part of that regional plan update process, which does in fact include already kind of scheduled 3 regional planning commission meetings that would occur, 1 in each of the jurisdictions and a physical location within the jurisdictions in advance of that October 10th meeting. Along the way, we've heard that in 2 weeks, we're going to see a full draft of the NR plan for review. In the June timeframe, we're going to see a draft of the PIP for review as well. And we'll make sure that you're alerted at the time that that becomes available online and inform you of the mechanism that you can provide your comments. Of course, you can always call or email me or any of the staff and let us know. But this is the march, so march to completion. We've got a lot of work to still do, but I kind of think of it sometimes as the dominoes, right? Setting up the dominoes, it takes a long time to set up the dominoes and a pretty quick time for them to go down. And as Nate mentioned, we're largely drafted on the NR plan. As Chris talked about, we're getting the data. We're going to have up-to-date information about infrastructure and the CIP stuff for this plan that comes forth this year. So I think we're looking pretty good, and we're still on schedule. And with that, happy to entertain any questions you guys might have, and thank you so much for your time.
Wow. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Is there a public comment?
There's none for this item.
So I'll entertain to move to accept the report. Accept a motion. Oh, did you have a question, Ms. Taylor?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to accept this report.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Abbott, and a second? And Member Vanderwell. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to everyone. We're now moving to item number 8 under reports, the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees member report. Ms. Smith.
All right. Thank you so much, Chair Andriola. So first wanted to start off by saying that I am so glad that my governing body chose me again to continue with the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Governing Board, my 4th appointment, and I really enjoy this body, so it's a real pleasure to be with you again. So big news coming out of the school district is that on Monday, we anticipate to announce the names of our superintendent finalists. And I will tell you personally, I hope this is the last time we do this for a very long time. There will be lots of opportunities for yourselves and all members of the community to learn about these finalists, to engage with the finalists in community events, and then opportunities for everybody's thoughts on our finalists to be heard in advance of any potential action that may happen later in May. And so more information will be coming on that soon. I also want to express a thank you to Dr. Smith and his team. I know that the school district has been working very closely with you for our annual submission for the Planning Authority's annual report, and that process is going very well. And I do have an advance invitation if everybody wants to get their pens out. This will be the first time anyone hears about this. The groundbreaking for the new Vaughn Middle School will be Friday, May 24th at 11:30 a.m. Formal invitations will come out to all of you and your colleagues on your governing board, but this is a very important first project for us as a part of the facilities modernization plan. So as a reminder, we invested our first $1 billion with WC1, and now we're in that second chapter, following that 18-month facilities modernization plan, and the rebuilding of Vaughn is that first project, and we really hope everybody can come out. It's part of that focus of really focusing on schools in our established neighborhoods and making sure that all of our students have those new modern environments, just like in our high-growth areas. So another thing I wanted to share is that last month we did make our walk zone smaller for elementary school and middle school students. So we do have 2,000 more students taking the bus, since transportation is one of those things that we pay very close attention to. And I also wanted to express a thank you on behalf of my board to the City of Reno. Wonderful partners. They put out postcards along very popular walking routes, reminding our residents to keep those sidewalks cleared in the winter months, because we have so many children and pedestrians and people still traveling, whether to school or to stores or around their neighborhoods. And so thank you so much for that. It really takes a village to make sure that all of our pedestrians and children are getting to where they need to be. So thank you so much. And I will close by saying that I will not be here for the June meeting because I will be distributing diplomas along with my colleagues for the North Valleys High School. Every year, the timing of this meeting also conflicts with our annual high school graduation ceremony. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? We will move to 8B. Dr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Jeremy Smith for the record. Just a quick report. Wanted to talk about a couple of upcoming engagement opportunities that the agency and staff are going to be involved in. Next week, we're meeting again with the Regional Plan Update Working Group. That's staff from the local jurisdictions and entities. We're going to be talking about the Public Infrastructure Plan. We're also going to be this weekend representing a booth at the Banff Film Festival. It's always kind of a fun time, and we can get the word out on some of the projects we're working on. We'll be set up at Earth Day as well to do something very similar. And finally, we're going to be joining TUMWA for their Smart About Water event, which is a really cool event that we've been going to for the past 5 or 6 years, I imagine. And then, obviously, you heard a lot in that presentation about the work we've been doing and need to continue to do to meet this October deadline, but we're doing a bunch of other things as well. So just to highlight some of that, and we'll bring that forward, we're working on the 2024 consensus forecast. We're working on our Truckee Meadows annual report and statistics. We're getting those reports in, and we have to generate that dashboard statistics. We've been doing a lot of GIS work to support the Regional Transportation Plan update. Really neat sweeping changes going through that, new calibration, new traffic analysis zones, and we're getting, I think, good vetting of the data, working with also the city of Fernley now as part of the transportation demand modeling area, so that's pretty cool. Thanks to Shawnee and our work with shared services with the Western Regional Water Commission, they are very close to rolling out a brand new website, which updates them significantly from the website they had, and we're helping them with the hosting and how to do stuff. Actually, Shawnee built the entire site, and that one we did get funds to reimburse us on that one. And then the one thing also that we need to re-engage on, and I'm planning to talk with the chair of the RPC in advance of our meeting this month, is the Projects of Regional Significance Subcommittee, and really trying to get back to what can we do from a regional perspective to help with the conversation about charter and private schools and the impacts of charter and private schools on other pieces of our infrastructure. We have great information in working with the school district. We have a facilities plan. They produce an annual report, and it really allows us to get out in front of what's being planned for schools spatially and, sort of for a student enrollment perspective. It's a little different when it comes to the charter and private schools. They're kind of participating in a different track. And so we don't really have a lot of advanced notice of that, and we want to ascertain where we could possibly assist in the process of understanding, how we can mitigate impacts from those types of schools. So those are some things coming up. And then really kind of a neat little distraction, if you want to go on a little website field trip to our website and go to our affordable housing page. Shawnee made an amazing graphic we've been talking about for a while, which really does a good job of visualizing different residential densities. One of our taglines is, because how we grow matters. And this graphic really gets at, what does that mean from a density and land use, total acreage type of land use perspective? So that's on our affordable housing website on the page. With that, our next meeting will be in these chambers on June 13th. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members' reports? Hearing none, we'll move to 8C, Legal Counsel Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. Nothing to report.
Thank you. We'll move to item 9, Board Comments and Requests for Future Agenda Items. You guys are making this easy. Okay. We'll move to item 10, Public Comment.
We have none.
Any written correspondence?
There is none.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Public meeting law. Adjourn. Okay. You don't have to tell me twice.